most envied league in the world is about to explode into action once again.
Good afternoon everyone, this is Pernilla and I'm Pauline. This is Sport Today on BBC World News. The topic of today is about transfer fees in the English Premiership. Whilst transfer fees have inflated universally, the Barclays Premier League has shown this escalation in fees more prominently than on any other league.
The labour market for the football players has experienced changes in its regulations this last few years ago with the Bosman ruling in the 90s. The Bosman ruling, introduced in 1995, is all about the procedure of when a player's contract comes to an expiration. They are permitted to move freely without the need of a transfer fee. Recent examples of this include Joe Cole from Chelsea to Liverpool in 2010 and Didier Drogba from Chelsea to Shanghai Shenhua in 2012. The knock-on effect of the Bosman ruling is that with clubs not having to pay a transfer fee, agents can negotiate higher wages and signing on fees for the players. Thus, more and more players are running down their contracts and leaving free.
In the football market, the salaries have reached these high levels with the simplest of economic theory, supply and demand.
According to human capital theory, the wages and transfer fees are related to the skills and performances of the player. The transfer fee is determined by the demand, price, elasticity and how unique the player is.
The elastic graph represents the transfers of Peter Crouch. Peter Crouch was initially transferred to Liverpool from Southampton in 2005 for £7 million. Transfer fee 2 reflects his transfer to Portsmouth 3 years later for £9 million. Factoring in inflation, the demand would appear to be weaker, and demand determines the fee of the player. This proves that the demand is elastic. Transfer fee 1 reflects Robin van Persie's first transfer to Arsenal for £2.75 million in 2004. As you can see, transfer fee 2 was to Man United for £22.5 million in 2012. This is because a bigger demand due to his goal-scoring records has led to his price becoming more inelastic.
The supply is determined by the age, the skill level required and experience. However, the supply curve remains inelastic as said previously, as the wage is set by the demand, and therefore if there's an increase in demand, there will be an increase in their wage. To illustrate, the French striker Loic Remy has completed an £8 million transfer to QPR. Many have attributed Remy's decision to choose QPR over Newcastle due to QPR offering a higher wage than Newcastle.
And now over to Chris at the Sports Bar, who's talking to the public about investment and ownership.
Hi, I'm Chris Stanton. We've come here today to Cheney Sports Bar to talk about transfer fees in the modern day. Josh, what's your opinion on transfer fees today and how they affect the market and the game?
Oh well, I think transfer fees are way too high at the moment. They're pushing prices up for fans, and it makes it more difficult for people to see because they have to make their money, see their team because they have to make their money back.
What sort of aspects have you noticed where prices increase? Is it tickets? Is it merchandise?
Everything, tickets to pies and coffee.
James, what's your opinion?
Well, I think it's kind of unfair on other teams because some teams have sort of got foreign investors, mainly Arabic. Like you look at Manchester City, who are a pretty average, down-to-earth team a couple of years ago. They get invested, a couple of million, and they're now one of the best teams in the Premier League. So I think it's unfair on teams who don't get so much money.
So would you agree that foreign ownership sort of makes an unlevel playing field?
Yeah, I think especially in the Premier League. Yeah.
Do you feel there should be any regulations on transfer fees globally or domestically?
I think it should be a limit in Premier League over how much you can spend.
Ownership investment has long had an influence on transfer dealings. However, a recent influx of multi-millionaire and in some cases billionaire sugar daddies has distorted transfer fees in the modern era. Jack White's takeover of Blackburn in 1991 was a sign of the direction the transfer market was heading. His finances saw Blackburn Rovers smash the British transfer record twice in 2 years, with the signing of Alan Shearer from Southampton in 1992 for £3.5 million and Chris Sutton for £5 million in 1994. In 1995, Blackburn Rovers won the Premier League through Jack White's investment. Jack White's takeover can be seen as the trigger for the change in the British transfer market. Andy Cole signed for Man United from Newcastle for £7.5 million just 1 year after Blackburn won the league through financing.
Thank you, Chris. And now I'm going to pass it over to Alex, who's talking about the effect of broadcasting revenue in the transfer fee market.
The English Premier League is a private company where shares are distributed amongst the 20 Premier League clubs. The Premier League club revenue reached a record 2.2 billion in the season 09-10 and were exceeded 2.2 billion in the following season 2010-2011. In total, the top 92 English clubs saw revenues increase by 5% to almost 2.7 billion in the year 2010-2011 season. As a result of this, it is fair to deduce that perhaps whilst transfer fees have increased alongside an increase in broadcast revenue, they have not increased proportionally. In essence, increased broadcast revenue has been allocated to more than just transfer fees and could be seen by clubs as necessary financing for a day-to-day running of the club's administrative duties as opposed to merely transfer fees.
With other factor, with the introduction of UEFA's financial fair play regulation, from the next season, club will begin to reduce their loss by only spending from what they earn. What is not the immediate regulation, and the club will be able to adjust over a period of time. The knock of this effect is that the club will not gonna be able to exploit having wealthy owners in the transfer market as much as they have before. Club theoretically will begin and they spending in order to meet the regulation.
With increased scrutiny over the amount of the foreign exports in the UK, we have begun to see an increase in transfer fee command for UK players. There are many questions whether Andy Carroll would have been worth £35 million if he wasn't a homegrown player. James Milner's £20 million transfer to Man City was another case that came under this scrutiny. Many attribute inflated fees to increase the media exposure in modern day and the prospect of homegrown regulation proposed by FIFA in 2009.